Voice of Choice podcast ad paid for by Californians for School Choice. Committee major funding from Dale Broome.
Trapped by their zip codes, the poorest children are denied access to a quality education that will enable them to break the cycle of poverty and take their rightful place in our society. This is real systemic racism. It's time to put school choice on the ballot. Hello, this is Mike Alexander, president of Californians for School Choice. Under the Educational Freedom Act initiative, parents, not zip codes, will decide where their children go to school. Parents wanting to leave the disastrous public school system will receive a yearly tuition credit of $14,000 per child to attend a private or religious school of their choice and save any money left over for college, vocational training, or other qualified expense. To sign the petition and learn how you can help, go to californiaschoolchoice.org. That's californiaschoolchoice.org. And remember, it's your kids, your money, and your choice.
Committee major funding from Dale Broome.
Welcome to the California School Choice Radio Network, hosted by Mike Alexander, the lead proponent of the Educational Freedom Act initiative and chairman of Californians for School Choice. Join us to learn how to put parents, not politicians, in charge of our children's education. And now, here's your host, Mike Alexander, the voice of choice in California education.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Voice of Choice. This is Mike Alexander in episode 7 of our continuing saga here, discussing the issue and the backgrounds to the most important topic of today, and that is education. In fact, the most important topic any day is the education of your children, your grandchildren, and really everybody else's children. In the Voice of Choice here, we like to explore in more depth and more background individuals and personalities that give us some background and insight into what's going on. Why is school choice all of a sudden the biggest issue in the United States for parents? Well, it's obvious because the person involved in education is, of course, your child, the most important person in the whole world to you. His future, her future is what drives us as parents, drives us as a society. In fact, here in California, as you know, we regard education, quote unquote, to be so important that we earmark 40% of our California general revenues for the central price called education. That was the result of Proposition 98, which was passed over 30 years ago, passed back in the 1980s. That's how important education is. But as important as it is to you, as important as it is to all of the citizens in California, we have put people in charge of it who simply can't deliver. And right now, California's schools are 48th in the nation. I know that you'll find some special pleader for the school system will say, "Oh no, Mike, they're actually 42." Oh, well, that's it's amazing. Now that we're all encouraged, is this a trend? Now the trend's the other way. And the fact is that here in California, we spend a minimum of $15,000 per year per child under just basic California funding under Proposition 98. And under overall spending, we're spending at least $21,000 per year per child right now. If you don't believe me, go to Governor Newsom's so-called budget, and he'll tell you exactly what those numbers are. The numbers I'm quoting to you come directly from him. And what that means is that if you take the average classroom of 25 children, K through 12, and divide it by the number of kids and multiply it by the amount of money spent, we're spending over $500,000 per year per classroom of children. They're 25, and we all know what they can't do. We all know the terrible story and the terrible plight of youngsters who are in the inner city and elsewhere who simply are not getting the tools that they need to take their rightful place in society. As a result, what we have here is so many children who will never have a shot at the prize, and you and I need for them to have a shot. It's not enough just for your children and mine to be educated. Mine certainly have been. Yours, I have no doubt, have been. But for those of us who don't have the money, we have a vested interest in making sure that they have an opportunity to educate their children, because whether we like it or not, their future is one that we share with them. And I do like it. I am very happy to work here in our wonderful state of California to ensure that each child has the opportunity to find his way, and that may be to ultimately lead him to college, or like most students, 2 out of 3 don't go to college. Most other students will find a way in the trades. They'll find a way in some type of vocational training. Maybe it'll be the opportunity to begin to learn at an early age how to be a good baker, a good welder. You want to talk about people who can go out and make good money right now today. There's a huge demand for welders. I know my son runs a place out in Victorville. He can never get enough young men, and it's mostly men, believe me, who want to weld and handle steel for a living. This is what youngsters really need. They need a pathway to help earn their way without taking on tremendous debt in college and ending up with a degree that's nearly as useless as the person who taught them in college. And at best, gives them the opportunity to return back to Starbucks where they started. In other words, they had a decent job to start with. They should have stuck with it. Instead, they go out and get a degree in left-wing critical theory of some sort, and now all that does is, instead of pouring a decent coffee, they can now do it with attitude. But in any event, but they've got some debt to go along with it. So we have a number of things coming up on our show here. Early this afternoon, we're going to have Reverend Brian Hawkins, who, together with me, is one of the lead proponents of the Educational Freedom Act initiative here in California. And then later on, we'll have Juan Tierra will come in for our one of our favorite episodes of the week, and that is Government Grifter of the Week Award. And this week, we will dig into budgets here so that you can understand where the money is going. So when I tell you that we're spending $500,000 on average per 25 children in California, and you know and I know that teacher and the costs and the books and whatnot maybe soak up $150,000 out of that budget, you want to know, like I do, where does the other $300,000 to $350,000 go per year? What the hell do they do for that money? Well, it goes right down the bureaucrat rat hole, goes right into an out-of-control pension system. It goes to all the special interests who profit from government. We can do this better. We can do it cheaper. And in fact, schools throughout California, in the inner city, particularly Catholic schools, have been doing a wonderful job for years and years and years. And what we need to do is to make sure that the money follows the child. And you know, one of the common arguments, and you and I will hear in opposition to school choice, will be the idea that we're going to take money from government and we're going to give it the snivel. I don't do snivel very well, but if I could, they snivel. We're going to take money from government and we're going to give it to private schools, wealthy private schools, to pay for rich kids' tuition, and they're not going to be accountable or transparent or in anything else. How do you possibly justify that? Well, somebody actually asked that question, and you'll hear her sniveling on this recording here. This wonderful audio clip of the week, and it's a dialogue. Remember, libs have dialogue. It's a dialogue between Representative B. Wen from Georgia and a Wes Cantrell. And when you hear this, you'll go ahead. So go ahead and play that clip, if you would, Mr. Producer.
So my question is, if we are using public dollars to fund private schools, why don't these schools have the same level of accountability and scrutiny as our public schools?
You're right. They don't have the same level of accountability. They have a much higher level of accountability because the families have the freedom to leave and take their money with them anytime they're not happy with what's going on at the school. They don't have that option currently in the public school.
Ha ha ha! How did you like that comeback? Yes, she sniveled. I think she did a good job. B. Wynn did a great job of sniveling, and Wes Cantrell came right back at her. He says, "You're right, lady. They don't have the same level of accountability. They have a much higher level of accountability. Families have the freedom to leave. That's the accountability of the marketplace. So, no, you don't need a license to teach. Now, here in California, that is an accountability license. Here in California, under the Educational Freedom Act, we will, as a matter of fact, have complete transparency and complete accountability, but the ultimate accountability is the accountability that that institution has to the children and to the parents and grandparents who place the children in their care. There is an accountability every 6 months, and believe me, you know what schools are going to get better right away? It will be the public schools, because we are not only going to make the parents of private schools, will not only make the private schools accountable to private parents under Educational Freedom Act. Believe me, the public schools will now be more accountable than ever, because they will know that child's needs and that parent's concerns must be met, or that parent can take the kid, take the money, and go find a private school. Those public schools are going to get so much better. I predict a lot of people want to go there in the future. This could be the biggest improvement ever. Hey, do you think maybe they'll build a statue to me or something like that? The great reformer here. They'll give me a picture, maybe a statue of some type, right? So they're tearing down all those other statues, so maybe they melt them down, use one of them for me. They put my figure right up there on Wilshire Boulevard in front of the United Teacher of Los Angeles building. Then maybe those pigeons can get a straight shot at me there. But we'll reform their schools, and everybody's going to do better, including teacher schools. And this is why that one of the big secrets that nobody ever wants to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that teachers in the major urban census areas, over 30% of their kids go to private school. And I can assure you that in the teachers who teach in the inner city, very few, if any, of their kids attend the schools where they teach. And I don't blame them for it. And that's why I have a prediction to make, and that is, when we get, with your help, get the Educational Freedom Act initiative on the ballot, I predict that 2 out of 3 teachers will vote for school choice. Why? Because they're parents too. It's a logical position. So, when we look throughout our country here, we find that that people are still imposing mask mandates on children and on teachers at schools, while our elites, whether it's the governor of California, our mayor, or a zillion minor officials in between, go to these playoff games, and they'll go to the Super Bowl, and they'll go to the French Laundry and the Spanish Laundry and every laundry in between, and they will follow rules that you and I don't have to, and insist that we actually take them seriously. It is just an incredible opportunity for all of us to take back our children. And as we say, as we approach these things, our motto is to remember it's your children, it's your money, and therefore it's your choice. So we're going to take a little break right now, and when we come back, we're going to have the Reverend Brian Hawkins as our special guest this week to discuss about his support for the Educational Freedom Act initiative and what it means for the Black community, where he has been a leader for so long. Back in just a minute. California schools rank 48th nationally. Even though we spend $20,000 per year per student, that's $500,000 per classroom. This system is nothing but a fraud, a hustle, and a con. It's time to put school choice on the ballot. Hello, this is Mike Alexander, Chairman of Californians for School Choice. Under the Educational Freedom Act initiative, parents will decide where their children go to school. Each child will receive a yearly tuition credit of $14,000 to attend a private or religious school of their choice and save any money left over for college, vocational training, or other qualified expense. To sign the petition and learn how you can help, go to californiaschoolchoice.org. That's californiaschoolchoice.org. californiaschoolchoice.org. And remember, it's your kids, your money, and your choice.
Committee major funding from Dale Broome.
All right, everybody. This is Mike Alexander, Chairman of Californians for School Choice, and one of the lead proponents of the Educational Freedom Act initiative here in California. And this is episode 7 of The Voice of Choice. And as you know, this is the opportunity that we take to give you, the audience, a little more background than we can cover in just an email. And in this segment, the first segment of the show, we always try to go in depth with one of the people or personalities or leaders, thought leaders, community leaders who are working in this area. And today we have the opportunity to have with us Reverend Brian Hawkins, who is, with me, one of the lead proponents of the Educational Freedom Act. Reverend Hawkins, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander, and I appreciate you for inviting me on.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we got a little bit of background noise in there. Pastor Hawkins is on the road today preaching the good word about school choice and about other things. You are also currently a candidate for office. Are you still running out there or planning to, Pastor?
Yes, sir. So I'm elected to office, too, as well. So I'm the councilman in the city of San Jacinto. I'm the congressional candidate. So I'm running for Congress in the 25th district, which is Imperial County, Riverside County, and some parts of San Bernardino County.
Yes. Fantastic. Well, as a guy who is out there each and every day, tell us what you're hearing from people. I mean, tell us first of all about the 25th district. Who lives out there? Obviously, a lot of average working folks. Maybe tell us about your district and what you're hearing.
Absolutely. Well, the district is pretty large, as you heard me say. It goes all the way from El Centro, California, Imperial County, Riverside County. So you got your where we just left from Blythe. We're just speaking with Calvary Chapel Blythe, where the pastors, they're collecting signatures for the Educational Freedom Act. And so they're really excited about it. And so many people are so excited about it once they hear what school choice is really about. Not from media, not from politicians, but from somebody who actually has children in school that really believe that this is the pathway to educational freedom. And so, once we sit down with people, it's like a breath of fresh air. One of the big questions, like, man, what took this so long, to be available? And I said, you got politicians to get in the way. You have, roadblocks, but now it's here. Let's get behind it and get this put on a ballot. And, right now I'm running with both those two agendas. Education is my platform. I think it's a great equalizer to really unify in this country, bring in so much needed unity. I spoke yesterday and I said, 75% of the guys incarcerated have no diplomas. And so that just speaks volumes to how important it is to focus on education.
That's right. And this problem, of course, has been a huge problem in the Black community, but a huge problem in the Latino community as well. So we have these guys, we're putting them in jail. They probably did something to deserve to get there, but they don't deserve to stay there forever. So the real question is, what's the plan for rehabilitation? And if they don't even have basic learning skills, what in the world are we going to do? And this is why one of your counterparts in the cloth, Bishop Juan Carlos Mendez, I know you know who he is, and when I was speaking with him here a few months ago, he came right out and characterized the system as a pathway to prison. Do you agree with that characterization, Reverend?
Absolutely. I know that once they start to label certain kids that don't learn in a certain model that the current public school system is set up, they automatically say, okay, if you're not going to learn this way, then you're a troublemaker. And some of the kids just, they don't gravitate to that learning style. My son, he's 8 years old. My wife and I, we took him out of the public school system and put him in a charter school. Why? Because he wants to be a pilot. The particular school we put has an aviation class. And so he, the same kid a few months ago that was, didn't want to sit down, didn't want to learn. Now the kid is learning. He's not having a problem in school because he's have something that's gravitating towards his learning style. He doesn't fit the traditional classroom.
Right.
And so this is just perfect for him.
Yeah. And, a lot of kids don't. When we look at the teaching profession, here it's dominated by women. That's not a bad thing. It has been ever thus. But grammar schools, especially K-8, have a requirement that people sit still, that they pay close attention, that they be good kids and students. Well, we have these creatures in our society. You and I call them boys, and we know that that they can't sit still, don't sit still, will not sit still. And when you try to imprison them, they start bouncing off the walls. So our own system demands certain characteristics that are inconsistent with children's personalities too. And as you point out, once one of these kids gets pigeonholed, then he's a troublemaker, or he's a problem learner, or worse yet, we take what you and I know to be a boy or a rambunctious girl, and we relabel them and give them pills, right? We start feeding them drugs, Ritalin. Then we've taught children that they're abnormal when they're just kids, and that if something's going wrong in your life, well, maybe there's a pill to fix it. So a society that has massive problems with substance abuse starts early on in the schools by teaching our children and teaching their parents that there's something wrong with their kids. Have you had any experience like this, Reverend?
Absolutely. I grew up in that type of experience, and almost like, let me help create the problem so I can come along and grow the government so I can provide a solution. And, those who have grown up in the public school system and the model that it has, and as I was explaining to the individual the other day, it's not an attack on the public school system. It's just to say that, hey, there are some students, as technology has advanced, even our cell phones, they send us an update every 2-3 months. And if our technology needs an update, well, I think our public school system needs an update. When was the last time the public school system has been updated? We'll update everything else, our computers, our cell phones, all the technology, but the way in which we're learning, and we all know that we're learning different. There's more information that's available. And I think it's important to look at that and speak to it. Because if we're looking at kids and saying, hey, they're a troublemaker, I've seen guys in prison, some of the greatest minds, engineer minds, if they had just been given a direction in the public school system when they were early on, we probably have the cure for so many diseases. There's some intelligent men and women that are behind bars, but unfortunately, situations created a different path for them. And we gotta address that, and this is the best way to do it.
Well, maybe we could do a prisoner exchange program with the United States Congress, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, some of those guys, they've already got the personality profile to be in jail, so we ought to just get the real crooks over there in San Quentin and let the other guys get out and work steady. Let's talk, if we could here for a moment, about what you're hearing from parents You mentioned that someone has been asking, hey, where's this program been all my life? We're happy to hear it. What do you hear out there about what people are concerned about as Californians?
I mean, a lot of concerns is government overreach and how much authority do the government have and how less of rights do parents have. You've heard, some of even our politicians have said, parents don't have rights. Once you put, kids into school, then these are our children.
Yes.
And I think that's the wrong message to send to any parent. I think every parent should have a right to, decide what their children should be learning. And that's a big, important issue. Most parents, a lot of parents that I'm running across, they prefer to have freedom, the mandates, forcing their kids to learn curriculum, sexual orientation, just different things. Some parents want to protect, like myself, I want to protect my child's innocence. My child can be learning certain perversions in school, and I really want to help protect that. My kids, shouldn't be coming home asking me, just this morning, I was talking to my daughter, and they were at a friend's house, and her friend was, giving my son a girl toy. And my daughter, she's 10 years old. She's telling my brother, my brother doesn't play with dolls. And her friend was like, oh, so you're homophobic? And it's like, no, my brother she just played with dolls. You know what I mean? And so and these are fourth grade kids. Like, I didn't even know that term when I was in the fourth grade.
Right.
Right. I never heard of some of the language that's being used. Like, we're really stripping our children away of innocence, and we're forcing them to have adult conversations. There used to be a quote when I was a kid, children should be seen and not heard. And that's how my raised me, like, focus on being a kid. And now we're living in a society where children are being introduced to an adult world, and it's so unfair.
Oh, it really is. Pastor Hawkins, maybe you could give us the audience a little background here. Do you have an active ministry right now, or in the past? What are you doing these days?
Oh yeah, I senior pastor of church, for the last 6 years up until the time I, ran for office. I was still pastoring even after I got elected, and now I'm running for Congress. I kind of shifted my pulpit to the political arena, and so now my pulpit is mobile. So as far as an actual building, no, but every platform I'm at, my Bible is my weapon of warfare, and so anytime I'm up speaking, there's no difference between me preaching the gospel and trying to save America. Like, they go hand in hand.
Truth is the truth. And now, yesterday, I believe that you were interviewed by a black media network operation. Tell us a little bit, if you would, about that interview, the people who did the interview, and how it went. We could tell a lot by their questions. What were they talking to you about?
Well, given the fact that school choice, for the most part in the black community, was first introduced, or most individuals heard about it during, President Trump's administration. And so obviously the media has played a very good language game of, attaching school choice to President Trump's administration. And we all know how much it has destroyed him, and destroyed his relationship with the black community, or tried to anyways.
Yes.
I think that now people are starting to rebound and see it for what it is. But, there was a lot of reservation because the connection was school choice, President Trump, Republican, racist. And that's kind of like how the language was, put out there. But when I sat down and explained to them, exactly what school choice is, and, one of the questions they asked was, isn't this going to take money from the public school system?
Yeah.
And my question, hey, California is the 6th largest economy in the world, and we're ranked 43rd in education. And so you're worried about taking money from the public school system. Yeah, I don't want to dance around it. Money needs to be moved away. If you're failing our kids, and besides, the public school system want to do away with D's and F's anyway. So if you want to do away with D's and F's, do away with the money because those kids are still failing, regardless if you don't want to call it a failure or call it a D or call it an F. But at the end of the day, I think that they were very receptive.
Good.
I was able to follow up. They asked a couple of questions, that, like I said, that's like the biggest concern, isn't it going to take away from the public school system? Well, somewhere, not every kid, just like people have adopted a quote, not every kid should go to college. Well, not every kid fits in public school system. And that's just the truth of it is,
this is a good opportunity for the audience for us to go back into certain details on the system. The short answer is that the Educational Freedom Act, and getting into some of the accounting details, Reverend Hawkins had other responsibilities, and I had the privilege to be on the drafting committee, and this is one of the things we faced. And the Education Freedom Act initiative doesn't take anything at all, does not take money away from the current system at all. We do not change how much money a child gets into the system. If the child leaves the system, as a matter of fact, he leaves behind around $5,000 or $6,000 in spending he will not be taking with him. He takes his $15,000 per year. It'll start at 14, actually. Takes his $14,000 per year, and he takes it with him. So the money follows the child. And inside the public school system, each time a kid leaves, or each time $14,000 a year is paid to the child, he's paid that over and above the existing funding. If he leaves the school, that $14,000 will follow him, but the overhead will be reduced by at least that amount of money. The overhead will actually be reduced $20,000 a year, won't it? So every kid that takes 14 with him leaves 6 net behind him. So the public school system is not changed at all. What it does do is introduce competition, and that's what they're really afraid of. And when the critics of the system snivel and snarl, they say, but Reverend Hawkins, if we pass this, it's going to ruin the public school system. And what we do is need to snarl back. Said, no, lady, you already did that. We're already sitting at 48, lady. How far down do you have to go to say you ruined the system? This system gets better. And the real question, lady, is not what is the argument for school choice. The question is, what is the argument for universal, compulsory, one-size-fits-all, government-run schooling? What is the argument for that? Maybe we could start there, and you could tell me why you should exist. We don't buy food that way. You don't buy your car that way. You don't get medical treatment that way. You don't buy a house that way. But you think that all of us ought to educate our kids that way by sending them to you with no guarantees, no results, and a perfect track record of failure. Talk to me, honey. I'm waiting to hear from you. Absolutely. No, and I totally agree.
Yeah. I don't understand how individuals with the record and the score, I mean, we often hear, trust the science, trust the data. It amazes me that someone even want to defend the public school system. When you have minority kids who can, 19 to 21%. That's only 19 to 21% can read above 4th grade proficiency, can do math above 4th grade. I mean, that's a majority of kids that are graduated from high school right now. That's why they made so much money on the TV show Smarter Than a 5th Grader, because they knew that 70% of the kids that graduate from high school are not smarter than a 5th grader.
That's right.
And they made a TV show that proved it.
Yeah, there you go. And when we take, I talked about the numbers in the introductory part, but let's while we've got you on, just to follow that up. At $20,000 a year per kid, average classroom number, 25 kids. That means we got $500,000 per year going into a classroom of 25 kids. $500,000. And over that kid will be in school. That's the spending level from K through 12. That's 13 years. So you multiply that 500,000 by the 13 years, you come up with $6.5 million. $6.5 million, 13 years, and you can't get that kid past fifth grade. And they dare to ask Pastor Hawkins to justify a change in the system. Well, the real question is, what are we going to do that's different? And what we propose is something very simple. We let the money follow the child. And it's the parents, not the politicians, not sure as heck not me or the good reverend here. We're not going to pick that school. Those parents are going to pick that school. So, we in the educational freedom movement here, we vote with parents. We vote with the family. We recite right in the preamble to it that we believe in the natural right of parents to be the first educators and to control the moral, the intellectual, and the economic development, religious development of their child. These are privileges that belong to and rights that belong to the parents. And right now, our government undermines the family, and then we take these kids and we teach them shameful things, right? And you've got one of your children come on home talking about homophobia and whatever other kind, boy toys, girl toys, whatever. Pick your pronoun. We got the whole world turned upside down, and our kids can't read, they can't add, and they're on the way to prison. And then they turn around, and this is really shameful. They turn around and suggest that that our concern here arises because we're Trump surrogates of some sort. We're not parents. We're not pastors. No, we're Trump surrogates. And the reason we have the system is racism. And what an insult to parents who have to live in this system to suggest that that the solution that the cause of their problems is some guy that looks like me rather than the idiots who are running the local school. What an insult to people. And my sense is that people just aren't buying this stuff anymore. What's your impression out there, Pastor?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, the days of pulling the wool over people's eyes and telling them to look this way while they're doing the magic trick this way, those days are over. People want to know the detail. We've often heard that quote, "The devil's in the detail."
Yes.
When now people are looking at the details, they're asking the public school system, "Hey, how are we failing? How are we still passing these kids along? How are we still accepting this? How is this okay?" And that's the thing about it. I'm not okay with, being 43rd in the country. I'm not okay with us not being able to, have kids read or write in this country. I mean, that bothers me. I'm not okay with that.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's you're hearing parents across the country.
That's right. And there's just no excuse for it.
Virginia was a great wake-up call.
Yeah.
The election, with Youngkin and Winsome Sears, they ran on an education platform.
That's right.
So, people are concerned about their children's future and learning. And now we have a solution. No longer we hoping, we actually have a solution. Collecting the signatures, is this is the stone that's going to knock the Goliath down.
Yeah, I like that. The guy that's holding the slingshot here with us is Pastor Brian Hawkins, who's been with us for the last half hour. Brian Hawkins, do you have a campaign website that you'd like to tell the audience about?
Yes, sir. Hawkins for Congress 2022.com. Hawkins for Congress 2022.com. My social media handle is Real Pastor Brian. Mr. Alexander, I want to thank you for this opportunity. We're headed up to Needles.
All right.
Me and Ms. We're actually getting out. We're hitting the trails. 6 hours of driving, and then we're going to get up and start all over again tomorrow. So we're putting petitions in people's hands, giving the power back to the people.
Well, fantastic. And this, as Americans, we don't have to give our account of ourselves in any racial sense, but if you look deeply into the school choice movement, you'll see white folks, you'll see black folks, brown folks, yellow folks. We call them Americans. We call them parents and fellow citizens. Many times they're not citizens, but they're parents of children. And as such, we have a duty to educate those children, work with the parents to make them happen. And I can tell you one of the pleasures and privileges of doing what I've been doing here over the last year has been able to stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm with guys like Pastor Brian Hawkins here, fighting the good fight, doing God's work out there and helping to make a better future for every American, for every Californian, for every child in California, so that they have a great future and that we share that great future with them. Pastor Hawkins, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the trail.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate your time.
All right, everybody. Wasn't that a wonderful interview? What a great opportunity to talk with a guy who's out there fighting the fight and really doing it in a very large district and out there building his campaign around school choice. And, you know, I think that Pastor Hawkins is running as a Republican, but it really doesn't make any difference whether you're a Democrat candidate, an independent candidate, or a Republican candidate. Run on issues that matter to the constituents, and nothing matters more to constituents than the education of their children, which is key to their future. So that concludes the first segment here of The Voice of Choice. So stand by. We'll be back in just a minute for our second segment, our Government Grifter of the Week feature. Back with you in a moment. Trapped by their zip codes, the poorest children are denied access to a quality education that will enable them to break the cycle of poverty and take their rightful place in our society. This is real systemic racism. It's time to put school choice on the ballot. Hello, this is Mike Alexander, president of Californians for School Choice. Under the Educational Freedom Act initiative, parents, not zip codes, will decide where their children go to school. Parents wanting to leave the disastrous public school system will receive a yearly tuition credit of $14,000 per child to attend a private or religious school of their choice and save any money left over for college, vocational training, or other qualified expense. To sign the petition and learn how you can help, go to californiaschoolchoice.org. That's californiaschoolchoice.org. And remember, it's your kids, your money, and your choice.
Committee major funding from Dale Broome.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Back with you for the second segment of The Voice of Choice. This is Mike Alexander, back with you here, chairman of Californians for School Choice and president of the California School Choice Foundation. We had a wonderful first segment with Pastor Brian Hawkins, who is also one of the lead proponents of the Educational Freedom Act. And now we're in our always famous and popular second segment, the Government Grifter of the Week Award. And we have with us, as always, Juan Tierra, coming to us from his secret location somewhere on Mount Washington. So we're very happy to have you back. And I know you got some good stuff for us today. And we get plenty of good response to everything that you do. So, well, what's up with you today, Juan?
Well, today we'll examine the relationship between the teachers' unions and students. Now, here's a phrase I know you love, Mike. It's for the children.
No, that's wrong. Look, you remember. You when you say this, you have there's a way to say it.
Okay,
all right.
You're the leader. Okay.
It has to be unctuous.
Okay.
Oleaginous.
Oh, that too.
Phony. I ought to be good at it. I hear you say this to me, right? But above all, and most importantly, you have to say it by lowering it one octave. Instead of saying it's for the children, you have to say It's for the children, right? That is, so it's low. It's deep. It's heartfelt, right? So at any rate, it's for the children. But go ahead. I digress. This is like Hamlet's instructions to the actor. Let the words fall trippingly from your tongue.
It's for the children.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
It's a common refrain that the public hears from the leadership of the teachers' unions whenever tax increases or proposed bond issues to increase public spending on education are on a ballot. Is this really the case? Or do the teachers' unions use students to further their political agenda as well as increasing their own salaries and benefits? Here's some facts.
Stay tuned for the surprise answer.
Yeah, right. Is that a setup or what?
Yeah.
Here's some facts about the two large national teachers unions, NEA, National Education Association, and an AFT, American Federation of Teachers. Our sources today, Wikipedia, Politico, CTA.org, OpenSecrets.org, and, of course, TransparentCalifornia.com. Now, Mike.
Yes.
Which American labor union do you think has the largest membership in the country?
I think it's the NEA.
Very good.
Hey, that's good.
Some people think it's a Teamsters union. These pikers come in at 1.6 million people. NEA, 2.7 million members nationwide. 310,000 of them in California alone. And coming in at number 6 is another favorite of yours, the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, with 120,000 members in California. With over 3.5 million members paying dues, these organizations have millions of dollars to spend on politics, and do they spend it, including about over 400,000 here in California alone.
Yes.
Since 1980, they've spent over $60 million on political campaigns.
Is that all? Interesting. Yeah.
And surprisingly, that amount is 30% higher than any other single corporation or union. 95% of those political contributions go to what particular party, Mike?
Oh, Democrat.
Yeah, about 95%.
Right.
Yeah. It's never endorsed for the
But I want to talk about that. But go ahead. This is highly educational.
Okay.
Pun intended.
Of course, they've never endorsed anybody but a Democrat for president, and never will.
Right. Now,
is there any merit to the charge that the teachers' unions have put their interests ahead of basic education? Now, for example, they've consistently fought reform measures such as merit pay, implementation of reform measures. Tenure protection weakening it, failure to crack down on misconduct such as sex abuse, and of course, the elephant in the room, school vouchers.
Oh yes.
It would certainly appear those critics have something going there.
Well, let's stop. As you're giving the background, as you might imagine, this is an area in which I have a lot of experience and a lot of expertise. Here in California, we have at least 350,000 members of the California Teachers Association. You cited the number 310, but then you add in the other organizations. AFT.
Well, they lump it together.
Yeah, you lump them together, you're at least at 350 per year. And each one of these teachers pays $1,000 per year per teacher. That's what $350 million a year in dues. Now, in the I've forgotten the name of the decision. It would have been the Friedrichs decision, but it came down later with somebody else's name on it. But Justice Gorsuch wrote in his opinion, permitting teachers to opt out. He says, "Hey, look, the teachers union calls these dues as necessary to legitimate business, not political. But as Gorsuch pointed out, all of that money is really available for political purposes. And now far be it from me to argue with an incredible researcher like yourself, but a lot of this money gets spent on Democrats, certainly. But the other dirty secret is that in local races and school board races that are technically nonpartisan, even when you have Republicans on there, they are so afraid of the teachers' union's money and manpower that they toe the line. And so the teachers' unions don't even have to write money. They don't even have to write checks to their pet Republicans. The Republicans would just crawl up on their lap and behave like good little lap dogs, right? They get that little red ribbon on there, and they pant and they giggle, when petted by the union masters, and they do what they're told. You won't find one Republican candidate in a zillion who is willing to go out there and incur the wrath of the local public employee unions. So they get up there on the school board, pretend that they're for the kids. They'll even practice it with me. It's for the children, right? They'll even go out there and they'll say all that nonsense, but in the end, they take the data feed from the local bureaucrats and the teachers' unions, and it is a rubber stamp for what they want to do out there. Then they take this money and they do put it into political races that do matter. So for those of you who are Democrats out here listening to me, please don't think that Juan and I are engaged in Republican screed. Far from it. We're talking about the people in both political houses, and the fact is that both political parties in this state have failed utterly and completely to address this problem, and it's all caught up in party politics. The Educational Freedom Act that we are sponsoring here is strictly nonpartisan. If you're a Democrat candidate, I highly encourage you to run on this platform. Endorse it. Embrace the educational freedom of your constituents. The voters will love you for it. You can build a wonderful career around this, but you can't do that if you're looking for love in all the wrong places, and that would be the California Teachers Association, the AFT. And what is that loathsome woman's name who heads up NEA? Randy Weingarten?
She's the AFT.
Huh?
She's the AFT back in Long Island, New York.
AFT. Yeah.
Becky Pringle back in Washington, D.C. is the NEA person.
Oh, God. Yeah. Don't you love those cute little first names they come up for snakes? Yeah, those two women, they are lethal. And, when you go back to various administrations, particularly Democrats, but it doesn't have to be Democrats, you go back to those administrations, and those people are in there all the time. Right? And these guys are key here in California. There's one guy in particular, I can't remember his name, who's very, very high up in the CTA, and he spends more time in the governor's office than the heads of the parties. He's there all the time. These guys actually run the state at every political level. But at any rate, go ahead, John. Juan, you're doing a pretty good job there.
I stumbled a bit there, but the NEA, here's some really weird stuff to do. You're going to live these. There's a quote from a recent conference, NEA. They vigorously oppose all attacks on the right to choose and stand for the fundamental right for abortion under Roe v. Wade. Will incorporate the concept of white fragility in the NEA training staff development.
Mm-hmm.
It would be helpful if the NEA explained why abortion, LBGT, and the left's newest artificial construct, white fragility, was somehow relevant to K through 12 education. Beating a dead horse here, but
yes.
Now down to the local level, we're going to be on a couple of your favorite people here pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Example: the teachers' union attempting to foist its political agenda on the public look no further than UTLA.
Yeah.
United Teachers Los Angeles, which controls the LA Unified School District, LAUSD.
Mm-hmm.
Second largest in the country, 600,000 students, 60,000 members, 35,000 of which are teachers. The major affiliate of the New York AFT and your buddy Randy Weingarten. They've been criticized for extremely crowded schools with large class sizes, high dropout rates, expulsion rates, low academic performance, poor maintenance, incompetent administration, of course, since COVID, remote learning problems. But despite these issues, here's a list of demands recently made by UDLA. Defund the police, Medicare for all, full funding for California homeless, new program to address systemic racism, and a raft of new taxes.
Right.
1% wealth tax, 3% income surcharge on millionaires, increased property taxes on businesses, and eviction and rental relief. What have these got to do with reading, writing, and math?
Right.
Beating a dead horse here.
Right.
Now let's wrap up this point from Albert Shankar. Remember him offhand?
Oh, yeah. He was the guy that you love to hate.
Radical founder of the AFT in New York.
Yes.
Longtime president. And this famous quote, or infamous quote of his, when challenged at a union meeting that a policy he advocated would not benefit students, he famously stated, quote, "When school children started paying union dues, that's when I'll start representing the interests of school children."
Thank you, Al. You know, this goes back to our old buddy Dennis Prager, who says that he always prefers clarity to agreement.
Yes.
And Al Shanker there provided perfect clarity.
At least he was honest.
Well, let's not abuse the word. Let's say candid. All right. Honesty and Al Shanker probably are very loose acquaintance. But this is the point, ladies and gentlemen. This is not Miguel and Juan going after the Democrat Party. It's the whole doggone arrangement. And make no mistake that these education budgets and all the distortion and all these phony work rules and everything else, they get voted in by Democrats and Republicans alike from sea to sea. We have to change these things. And Juan is just telling you exactly how this con works. And it's got nothing to, well, there are partisan political issues there, but it's partisan politics and special interests, and you and I and parents and the kids are a rude afterthought. Well, out of all of this, you've got some nominees, so I better let you get to it here.
Well, first I have to say, since obviously the teachers' unions are always for the children.
Yeah.
Who really is? That would be our organization.
Yes.
California School Choice. As we propose creation of educational savings accounts via the initiative process, giving parents the option to send their children to an accredited school of their choice. Obviously. Okay. Our grifter nominations, this is a little off because we don't have money for 2021 yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to do, number one's the General Superintendent of LAUSD, General Superintendent Austin Butner, hired in 2016 to deal with the district's financial woes and severe underfunding. How well did that go? He's leaving. We got a new guy, and who knows how he'll do.
Yeah.
But he did pretty well. Regular pay $350, other pay $2,500, benefits $30,000, total $382,000.
That's for hitting up LAUSD, the first or second largest school district in the country. Second, yeah. And, he's really not doing that well compared to some of these academic thieves that you've cited here. So this guy, I don't know. The numbers are okay, but his game's weak. He needs to take his game to the next level. Who else you got for us? Give me a second one.
Well,
give me a winner.
Well, we're going to go to the union people.
Yeah.
No. We have nominee number 2, Alex Caputo Pearl. Here's a man with a hyphenated name, so I thought you'd love that one. But
Yeah, oh yeah, got to.
he's the current ULA VP, but was the president for 6 years from 2014 to 2020.
Yeah.
He's an avowed leftist, an avowed opponent of any type of financial or educational reform.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I can get on him now is his union salary. It's kind of convoluted, but it comes from the taxpayers to the teachers. Their dues go pay him. Okay, that's how it works. It's only listed as $112,000.
Oh, that's his bar tab. Yeah. Hey, look.
Got car allowance and all that stuff too, but that's
Hey, now you're coming off with all these Berkeley credentials here and all your research. You're putting on a pretty good show here. Then you come at me with a number I really can't believe: $112,000
that's
a year.
all I can find. That's what the union list. That's what the union list. His salary as a VP is.
Yeah. Okay.
But now, here's the real winner.
Okay.
Cecily, the current president of EDLA. Cecily Myert Cruz.
Oh, she's awful. We love her.
But she's a protege of Caputo Pearl. I think that was her successor. They're set up together. Not only is she president of UDLA, chair of the CTA, California Teachers Association, Civil Rights Committee, chair of the NEA Black Caucus, and a member of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And famous for this statement after a year and a half of COVID lockdown. Quote, "There's no such thing as learning loss. Our kids didn't lose anything. It's okay our babies may not have to learn their times tables. They learned resilience."
Mm-hmm.
So she's okay with this not working. She thinks that's okay as long as they're home and just learning stuff about coup and what difference between a coup and a resurrection or an insurrection is also one of her quotes. Okay.
Yes.
Again, her listed salary is only $112,000.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't believe that? I don't either.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, these two are out there grifting. I don't know. This is a weak field. It is. I mean, we got a hustler, Austin Butner, and despite running basically organized crime in Los Angeles, called the LAUSD, the biggest of the big. What is its the total budget? It's got to be what, 10, 20 billion a year?
Actually, next week I'm going to be going into that. Actually,
yeah, we need to know that because for being the capo di capi. Here in Southern California, only taking down $350 a year. Austin, either we don't know enough or he needs to up his game because.
No, he quit. He couldn't take it.
Did he? Okay.
Now we got a new guy. The Miami guy's coming in.
Okay.
Alberto Caraval or something.
Yeah.
He comes in at 440. He's taking charge, I think, in January.
Oh, he's coming in at 440. That's got a nice ring to it. Yeah, because I mean, you've introduced us to candidate after candidate, mid-level people who do just about nothing, and they're picking up $300,000-$400,000 a year. So, yeah, maybe you and I ought to start repping these guys in their employment negotiations. You're building up your background. You could become the union equivalent of a sports agent here, right?
The Lee Steinberg of education.
Yeah, you could do this. And the other two at 112.
We'll be doing more USD and the financial stuff and how big it is, the budget. It's amazing,
So just on money, we'd have to give it to Austin. And then we got the other two. They're tied at 112.
Well, however, Mike, look at their destructive policies.
Yeah, I know.
Their policies are killing us.
Yeah. Well, I have this really soft spot in my heart for Cecily Myert Cruz because we have used her face, public figure, we've used her face on a number of our communications, and it always increases our open rate by about 20%. I mean, it's like Fright Night with Freddy Krueger, and This woman is truly outrageous. I don't know. Let's give a drum roll, and then we'll leave it to one. He's the expert, all right. And the winner of our Government Grifter of the Week award is
Cecily Meyer Cruz, because of her policies.
She's a sweetheart. We love her. Maybe we should send her a prize. Do you think we should? Maybe let's think about this: a Government Grifter Week award from the Voice of Choice, right?
Why not?
Send her a petition to sign. Yeah, wouldn't that be special, right? All right, John. Well, we're at 3:00. We're at the end of our second segment of the week, and I want to thank you for coming in again. And we're not that fixed in time, but once again, the purpose of this Voice of Choice, people, give you a little bit of an update on things, but also go into background so you can understand what's happening in the biggest single industry in the state of California. We're talking about spending of over $100 billion per year, 40% of California's general revenues, and the lives of 6.2 million K through 12 children in the state of California. It would be impossible for me, short of War and Peace, it would be impossible for me to identify anything more important in the life of our state than this issue of education. They know it. Ironically, we all agree on it, which is why we passed Proposition 98 back in the 80s. It's why in community after community after community, we have voted for higher taxes, more parcel taxes, more bond issues. We have spent extravagantly on this thing called education, and we have done so for children in this state, regardless of their race, regardless of where they came from, their parents at least, regardless of their economic circumstances. Everybody of every race is voted for the benefit of children of every other race. Let's put this canard aside. What we're dealing with here is pure corruption, and the corruption that Juan has talked about here today is the corruption that is inherent in the government monopoly over education and the monopoly that is in turn enjoyed by a purported labor organization, which is nothing more than a political operation called the California Teachers Association, the United Teachers of Los Angeles, or the national corruption operations, the National So-Called Educational Association, and I forget what the name of that other operation. It doesn't make any difference. AFT, so-called Teachers Federation. All of these people are in it together, and they have one thing in common. It's not the kids. It's your money. That is the only intersectionality that they're interested in, believe me. And that's the intersection between their hand and your wallet. So on that low note, I will thank Juan Tierra again for being our guest, the Government Grifter of the Week Award. I'll thank our producer here, Kevin, and Kevin Campbell. Here, I even remembered his last name. I've succeeded where he often fails. In any event, it's great to have Kevin here. The podcast has been coming along. We've been getting a lot of great responses to it. Don't forget to go to our website, download the petition, the Educational Freedom Act Initiative. You can sign it, circulate it, and return it to us because of changes in California law. If you have a friend, send one to him or her. Get them to do the same thing. And if you have questions or comments or requests, you can always reach me, Mike, at californiaschoolchoice.org. So once again, this has been Episode 7 of The Voice of Choice, coming to you from the studios of KRLA AM 870, The Answer, right here in Glendale. Pleasure to be with you, all of you again, especially Mr. Producer, Mr. Campbell here. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week for Episode 8. And don't forget, remember, it's your money, it's your kids, it's your choice.